Because I do believe that this restriction is not consonant with the United States and is contrary to public policy and decidedly unconstitutional, I will order judgment for the defendants.
This was the ruling given by Judge Ross on August 23, 1943, in the court case Doss v. Bernal. Our unassuming hero, Alex Bernal, was a Mexican-American who fought for his right to remain in his home. Although his life's account is unknown today, his uplifting story is worth telling. Alex Bernal's 1943 legal battle in Fullerton, California, established the U.S. government's responsibility to uphold civil rights by challenging racially restrictive housing covenants. He stood up against these racist policies, acting as a role model for future civil rights in Southern California. His victory in the case Doss v. Bernal set a precedent for future rulings, reinforcing the nation's duty to protect equal housing rights and defining his legacy. This is his story.
On May 28, 1914, Alex Bernal was born in Corona, California. His parents were Ramona and Paul Bernal, who were both born in Mexico. In 1916, the family moved to Fullerton, California, where Alex will grow up. Alex only went to grade school, leaving to pursue work in the citrus fields as a teenager. After saving up his earnings, he bought a truck and began transporting produce across Southern California. A few years later, Alex met and married Esther Munoz de Anda, a native of Mexico. They moved into a one-bedroom apartment. Then they welcomed two daughters into their family, Irene and Marie Theresa Bernal. In 1943, the Bernals bought a home for their growing family on Ash Avenue in the Sunnyside neighborhood of Fullerton. The Bernals' purchase soon confronted them with the harsh reality of racial discrimination in this exclusively white neighborhood. Unbeknownst to them, their house deed included a clause stating no portion of that said property shall at any time be used, leased, owned, or occupied by any Mexicans or persons other than of the Caucasian race. Though Alex Bernal legally bought the house, his family faced opposition. Before racially restrictive covenants were enforced, racial zoning was used across the United States, determining where people worked and lived. It was expected that there was no intermingling of races. When the 1917 Supreme Court case Buchanan v. Worley ruled racial zoning unconstitutional, it resulted in the widespread use of racially restrictive housing covenants. These covenants forbid the sale, rental, or lease of properties to minority groups. Due to the 1926 Supreme Court case Corgan v. Buckley, the courts viewed these covenants as private agreements between citizens and refrained from intervening. In Orange County, California, racially restrictive covenants undermined the rights of the Mexican Americans, keeping them out of certain neighborhoods despite their vital role in the local citrus industry. The Bernals were one of these families.
Neighbors claimed that a Mexican family in their neighborhood would lower property values and disrupt the social standard of living. Soon after, someone broke into the Bernals' home, moving their furniture into the street. A few months later, on April 30, an eviction lawsuit was filed against Alex by his white neighbors to force them out of their home based on the racially restrictive covenant. He believed that his family had the right to remain in the neighborhood they wanted to live in.
Well, all I know is that he liked the neighborhood. For one thing, at the very end of the street was Maple School and a park. So we didn't have to go too far. All we did was just to walk out our door and take about 4 houses down, and there was the school and a park and a little swimming pool that was there. My dad is a hard worker, and he's a stubborn man. So, he bought that place. It was his, as far as he is concerned. And he was always, he stood up to what he felt was right. And that's what you have to do. You have to do this in your life.
The trial began on August 19, 1943 at the Santa Ana Superior Courthouse. The neighbors who filed the eviction lawsuit were represented by attorney Gus Hagenstein. He stated that the Bernals had full knowledge of the racial covenant when they purchased the home. They claimed the right to enforce the racially restrictive covenant attached to the deed was legally binding. The plaintiffs tried to justify their lawsuit with hurtful stereotypes, describing Mexicans as dirty, loud, lawless, and noisy, also arguing that allowing a Mexican family to stay in the neighborhood would lower property values. They referenced Corrigan v. Buckley, which recognized racially restrictive covenants as private agreements. One plaintiff, Hobson, claimed that
negative effects are always caused by the intermingling of peoples of other races to the detriment of persons of the Caucasian race.
At that time, this was the prevailing perspective in society.
In the courthouse, David C. Marcus, the Bernal's attorney, began his defense. His personal experience of discrimination and ties to the Mexican community inspired him to exercise his responsibility to protect your civil rights. He began by calling an anthropologist to the stand to challenge the basis of the racial covenant directly. The expert presented that there are only 3 races, and by these definitions, Mexicans are part of the Caucasian race, demonstrating that the restrictive covenant contradicted itself and was invalid. Marcus also argued that the covenant violated President Roosevelt's Good Neighbor policy, which promoted good relations with Latin American countries during World War II.
In the field of world policy, I would dedicate this nation to the policy of the good neighbor, the neighbor who resolutely respects himself and, because he does so, respects the rights of others.
However, his most compelling argument was that the racially restrictive covenant violated the 14th Amendment's guarantee of equal protection without discrimination under the law. On August 23rd, Judge Albert F. Ross understood that the racially restrictive covenant was unconstitutional and delivered a groundbreaking verdict, ruling in favor of Alex Bernal, declaring that his family could remain in their home and ordering the plaintiffs to pay their legal fees. In his decision, Ross agreed with Marcus's argument. He stated, if it is decided that because a person is Mexican, he can be restricted from occupancy, the same rule will have to apply to the English, French, or anyone else that any residence district might see fit to exclude. The matter of public policy, however, is the main basis of the court's decision. The ruling was an early victory in challenging housing segregation and set a precedent for future cases.
Local newspapers ran the story the next day, but Time magazine brought more attention to Alex's story. The March of Time, a radio broadcast program, created a dramatization of the Dos Bernal case, which aired on September 10, 1943.
Last week in the Superior Court of Orange County, Southern California, democracy in action faced a test. The ideals on which this nation was built, the ideals for which we fight today, hung in the balance.
Alex Bernal received overwhelming support through letters from people across the United States. These personal letters were treasured in the Bernal's home and kept throughout Alex's life. One soldier, William Corsua, wrote,
I want to tell you both that I admire you and respect you for sticking up for your rights as American citizens.
Miss Earl George Sorensen wrote, Dear friends, having read of your recent troubles in court, my heart went out to you as one American to another. I would be proud and happy to have you as my neighbors. Thomas P. Pecklin says,
Many are glad you were given justice as reported in Time on September 6.
Though the Bernals received support, they still struggled in their home. Marie Teresa recalls being encouraged to play inside the house instead of outside. A few years later, Alex's wife, Esther, passed away. The stress of the case most likely contributed to her declining health.
5 years after Alex's case, the same argument was used in the landmark Supreme Court case Shelley v. Kramer, marking a turning point in housing desegregation. In a unanimous decision, the court ruled that racially restrictive covenants could not be enforced in court as they violated the 14th Amendment. In 1968, the Fair Housing Act was passed, furthering this progress by prohibiting discrimination in housing. These legal milestones exhibited the court's responsibility to enforce equal protection under the law. Today, while unenforceable, racially restrictive covenants still exist in property deeds, and efforts are ongoing to remove them. States like California, Connecticut, and Virginia have passed laws to address this issue, but the process varies across the U.S., often requiring homeowners to pay fees to remove such covenants.
Doss v. Bernal laid the foundation for future Supreme Court decisions. It was one of the first cases to defend property ownership rights, challenge systematic racism, and affirm the court's responsibility to protect these rights. The Bernal's lawyer, David C. Marcus, continued to fight for civil rights in Southern California, later challenging public facilities segregation in Lopez v. Secombe and dismantling school segregation in Mendez v. Westminster.
So they used all those same arguments from Doss, Lopez versus Secombe, and Mendez in education to go not only take care of Shelley versus Kramer on racially restrictive covenants before the U.S. Supreme Court, but also Brown versus Board of Education, which ultimately did hold that when it came to education for youth, that separate is inherently unequal.
The story of Alex Bernal is more than just a legal victory. It's a reminder that the struggle for equal housing, education, and economic opportunities continues. His legacy shows us that even our own life decisions can have far-reaching effects. The courage of Alex Bernal inspires each of us to stand up for our rights and against racism.